long. Another batch of emails as we turn to politics, which is also in the news today, blurring the lines even more with the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. A top Clinton Foundation official has now asked Huma Abedin for help, or did in an email, obtaining diplomatic passports. That was Douglas Band, who worked for President Clinton for years. Clinton officials, though, disputing the claims that this was any kind of a violation, saying it was related to a trip President Clinton was making over to North Korea to work for the release of 2 American journalists who are being held by the North Koreans. So let's go to Texas Congressman Pete Sessions, who's here with us. What would you like to see now as even more comes out on this, Congressman?
Connell, we've been after simply the information, the data, the emails, and really the truth from Mrs. Clinton. As you recall, back in 2008, during her confirmation for Secretary of State, she indicated that her professional relationship with the Clinton Foundation would be held to. And obviously it's not. Hundreds of people who visited Mrs. Clinton gave millions of dollars. Those people and who they are were funneled to the Clinton Foundation, notwithstanding that Mrs. Clinton met privately with these people as Secretary of State. All these are questions and answers that need to be developed, and we're waiting for the Clinton Foundation and Mrs. Clinton to be honest about them. So in the meantime, we're going to ask for the data that is the emails.
Now, we're getting more and more of it, as you know, kind of drip, drip. I mentioned this last example with Doug Band, who had worked and has for the Clintons, for President Clinton, particularly for years, is an example of how cozy the relationship appeared to be between the foundation and the Clinton State Department when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State there. He'd send an email to Huma Abedin, who of course is one of Hillary Clinton's top aides, and said, hey, I need a diplomatic passport. It didn't end up happening, apparently, because when they went on their delegation to North Korea, they just didn't even stamp the passports. The North Koreans agreed to do it that way. But the idea that these emails are sent, it does say there's a cozy relationship, but does it say that there's anything illegal going on? It doesn't, right?
Well, in fact, in my opinion, it would be illegal.
Okay,
the State Department has, well, first of all, you violated what you said you would do at your confirmation hearing, and a person should be held accountable for that. But the law that really exists is that relationship that should not be violated, not only with your emails, the law specifically related to Mrs. Clinton and her use of private servers. All these are violations of the law. It is an ethical violation within the State Department.
Okay.
It is the law that we're expected to follow, and that is not just ethics. This is an important violation, and this is where Mrs. Clinton has repeatedly failed to see, because the lines are blurred. They're not blurred. They're a violation, and Mrs. Clinton believes she's above the law.
So as you ask for more information, as you said you're asking for and waiting for more to come out, what more do we need? Is there enough here to go forward that this should be something disqualifying to a presidential candidate running for office, or is your point that we're just not quite there yet? It just looks bad, and so where are we now?
Well, all of the above. What's interesting is that Mrs. Clinton, as Secretary of State, represents the United States of America, and we see other countries that are for openness. Other countries, we expect them to be above the board and avoid the kinds of relationships with people where there's a transfer of money back and forth. Mrs. Clinton is guilty of everything that she would wish as Secretary of State to hold other countries that we believe have ethical questions and violations. It's called not only violating the law, but it's really an ethical violation as Secretary of State. And Mrs. Clinton should be held to that standard. What are we saying? When we receive many of these emails, they're heavily redacted, which is information that she is using. And that is a difficult task for us to overcome. When you have these emails that are heavily redacted, if that's not smoke or fire, I don't know what it is. And there's a clear line of distinction here, and we're trying to make that the American people need to see where it's important.
Well, yeah, there is almost every day a story comes out related to this, that's for sure, and we keep covering it day in and day out. I want to ask you about at least 1 or 2 other things while I have you here. And, you know, the trip Donald Trump made earlier in the week got a lot of attention to Mexico. Then afterwards, we hear all this back and forth from President Peña in Mexico and Mr. Trump about the border wall that Trump has made one of the centerpieces of his campaign. Mexico now saying through their president that they will not pay a cent for Mr. Trump's wall. So what do you think is really going on here? How important is it? What have you made of all this?
Well, first of all, let me say this. The President of the United States, and I believe Mrs. Clinton too, would really hold Mexico hostage as political issues of us gaming the thought about not only the border, but really our relationship with Mexico. I think Donald Trump has been straightforward to say that he will deal with the Mexican issue, with the border issue, and he would err on the side of making sure that America becomes the winner. America becomes the winner because Donald Trump will stick to the law. Donald Trump will work after our drug and problems with catch and release and follow the law. In that regard, who's going to pay for the wall? I don't know that that's the issue. I think it's an analogy because you can go over walls and you can come under walls. He's going to build a relationship with our law enforcement and the Mexican government because they have a problem with the drug trade and cartels also. So we all live in a glass house. That's what Donald Trump is going to work on.
So what is so in your view, Trump is not literally serious when he talks about Mexico paying for the wall? I've been to so many Trump rallies where you hear who's going to pay for it. The crowd yells out Mexico. Your point is that he's never really been serious about that. It's more about getting a wall built. So because that's some people do, quite frankly. I know this for a fact, and speaking to his supporters and stuff, some people do take him literally on this. You don't?
Let me tell you what I take seriously. I have been to the border many times. I've lived on the border, and I can tell you firsthand that we are not following the laws of the United States.
Right.
We are not working well with Mexico. President Obama intentionally invited thousands of children from Central America through Mexico, which was a big embarrassment for Mexico. We will have a better relationship with Mexico under Donald Trump as president, and we will help them solve our problems, and we will help solve ours also. Mrs. Clinton will simply use it as a political whipping stump, and it's wrong. Donald Trump will work to success of America.
Fair enough. Congressman, good conversation about a number of topics. I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to move on to some breaking news. Thank you so much for coming on with us, and have a terrific weekend.